copies. We've got some good articles about SLELO PRISM in here, including the Black River Trail feasibility study and the virtual hike challenge and some other activities throughout the Black River watershed. I've got a couple copies of that. DEC's Great Lakes program works with New York Sea Grant on a Great Lakes Small Grants program, and that will be released this May. And we have just kind of a little handout about that if anybody's interested. And then working with our DEC Lakewide Action and Management Plan coordinator. Their DEC is involved with the Lake Ontario's Most Unwanted webinar that's coming up today, actually at the end of this meeting. But we could probably get a webinar recording. I did bring a flyer handout, but we have some partners from EPA and Environment and Climate Change Canada that are going to be speaking about Lake Ontario's Most Unwanted. And then I'm gearing up working with Sea Grant on a Day in the Life project, which it's a Day in the Life of Lake Ontario St. Lawrence River, which expands on the successful model that was applied in Lake Erie, Niagara, Hudson River to work with teachers and partners and engage students in a Day in the Life student summer event this fall. So we'll need all the partners we can get at our events, and we're going to be working through the activities and lesson plans. So if that's something you're interested in being involved with, reach out to me, and I'm happy.
I'm Lynn Bodak. I'm a landscape architect with New York State DOT here in Watertown. I think this is actually my first time coming to this meeting, but Alexander attended previously with John Falge. He retired last year, so I figured I'd come and take his place. And I think you guys are familiar with the work that we do. Like we'll include invasive species management on our roadside projects and partner with you guys for education and best management practices and identifying. We have a contact in main office that is keeps up to date on all of the latest invasive species. Without yep, Alexandra.
Pat Crass, Dixon County Soil and Water Conservation District Executive Director. I haven't been to one of these meetings in probably 5 or 6 years. Christine Watkins was the executive director. She retired in November, so thought we should better start showing up.
Executive Director with Jefferson County Soil and Water.
Steve Slowinski, New York State DEC biologist out of Region 6 on Watertown here. The first time actually coming to one of these meetings in person. Started relatively not that long ago in June, so nice to meet everybody.
I'm Sue Wise. I'm the horticulture educator here at Cooperative Extension. And the only update I have related to invasive species is we're doing a program this Saturday on landscape pests, and we're going to focus on 3 invasives: Asian jumping worm, spongy moth, and spotted lanternfly. We've had about 20 people signed up for that program so far. So if you know anybody who's interested, it's mainly for homeowners, they can register right online.
Hi, I'm Patricia Schulenberg. I'm now with the Tughill Commission as a project specialist. I'm also the co-chair of the Eastern Lake Ontario Dune Coalition. Some of the things we have coming up, there's the Black River Watershed Conference, June 8th, held at the Three Willows Event Center. We've got a great speaker lineup for soil and water conservation districts coming and sharing updates. Stormwater, forestry, invasive species funding. We'll hear from the Limestone Lake Monitor. There'll be time for community updates and discussions. We'll hear about Trout Unlimited's ongoing work, the rotated integrated basin study from New York State DEC, Katie Roderick. Robert Smith will be coming, talking about the urban forestry initiative, drinking and source water protection. I've got a flyer if you want to copy the date down. We're going to have registration opening up soon on the Tughill website. So
pass that around, save the date, hope to see you there. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Patrick will be there. It's gonna be a good time. The Eastern Lake Ontario Dune Coalition will be meeting, I'm hoping in person, but also offered hybrid on Wednesday, June 1st at 12:30 p.m. We're gonna have a lot of really great updates about the dunes and the wetlands, including funding opportunities. And we've invited Emily and Patrick to talk a little bit about brainstorming ideas for a potential 9-element watershed plan for Sandy Creek, South Sandy Creek. So lots of good ideas going on out there, and hope to see you at these events. Let's sign up.
And I'm Megan Pistoli's Education Outreach Coordinator, and you'll hear more from me later.
For those of you not well acquainted, Brittney Rogers, our Aquatic Restoration and Resiliency Coordinator in the back. And a question for you, are you recording this, Brittney?
I am.
Okay. And for those of you not well acquainted with me, I'm Rob Williams, the Director of the PRISM. So why don't we go to the phone, and I'll call on you as I see you on the list. Bonnie Parton, do you have any announcements you'd like to make?
I do not. And just as an introduction to the new folks, I am a wildlife technician out of Region 7, covering Oswego County for the SLELO purposes. So like I said, no updates for now.
Super, thanks, Bonnie. Crystal Decker.
Hi, it's Crystal Wixon now, but yeah, I am at Fort Drum still doing invasive work. I don't really have many updates outside of we're doing a lot of prep work for the next field season.
Super, thank you. And then Frank, assuming it's Frank Williams. You have to unmute yourself, Frank. Unmute yourself, Frank.
Yeah, this is Frank. I'm a retired DC Region 6 fish manager, Mr. Gardener, and volunteer.
Super, thank you. And it's Frank Flatt, correct?
Yeah.
Correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great, super, thank you. Super, thank you. So Frank, if you can go ahead and mute yourself, and then let's see who's next. Joe Chevroletti.
Hello, Joe Chevroletti, District Manager with Oswego County Soil and Water Conservation District.
Thanks, Joe. John Sova.
With the Tug Hill Tomorrow Land Trust. I'm a land protection manager for the trust and just started a couple months ago, so I'm new to the group here.
Nice to have you with us. Oh, let's see, Megan Kocher.
Morning, everybody. Yeah, my name's Megan Coker. I'm the Great Lakes Outreach Coordinator with New York Sea Grant. Just started last year, so I'm also new to this group, so thank you all for inviting me to be here. Emily Fell covered some of our updates regarding the Day in the Life project and the announcement of the small grants program funding that will be coming out May 2nd. I do have one other update. New York Sea Grant's working with DEC on redesigning the New York Invasive Species Information Clearinghouse website. So if anyone has any interest in being a part of that, we just assembled a steering committee. We're going to be meeting next week, but if anybody has any interest, again, in some input, providing input for the new website, you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan, and apologies for mispronouncing your last name.
That's okay.
Tom Elgire.
Good morning. Just trying to unmute my phone and my screen. First off, I just want to apologize that I'm not there in person. I know I had planned on it. Looking forward to it. Just had some personal issues at home that didn't allow me to travel today. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Tom Elgire, the Invasive Species Coordinator with New York State Ag and Markets. I cover SLELO and the other 7 PRISMs. So our horticulture inspectors right now, they're out there beginning their cooperative agricultural pest survey trapping. They're going to start placing traps this month. The department received notification from industry that there were geranium cuttings originating from Ethiopia that had been exposed to bacterial infection. So they let us know, kind of internally that they were dealing with that issue. The bacterial infection is Xanthomonas campestris. So our horticulture inspectors were kind of vigilant during their greenhouse inspections. They have been detecting this throughout the state. It's not widespread, but they have had detections across the state, and those plants are being destroyed and greenhouses are being cleaned to disinfected to prevent further spread. Also, we're anticipating more finds of that pathogen. In addition to that, we're also finding, this is a mouthful, chili pepper mild mottle virus on Calibrachoa, which is a flowering plant often sold in the horticultural trade. That is a Tabamo virus, so it's related to the tobacco mosaic virus. So it's also a threat, because it's closely related. It's a horticultural threat, but it's also an agricultural threat because of the risk to potatoes and tomatoes. And that can be easily spread by workers' hands and tools and equipment, things like that. And it's not spread by insects. So we're also dealing with that outbreak. Box tree moth, but the USDA has enacted a parallel quarantine to the state quarantine that was enacted back in December. So it's a mirror image, really. So it's Niagara, Orleans, and Erie County. We have not found it anywhere else, but it did come in from Canada. So SLELO does kind of come into play there a little bit. But right now, although Canada has it, the only place in New York State that has it is Niagara County. Orleans and Erie County were kind of a buffer zone, so that they were included in the quarantine basically as a buffer. Nothing has been found there to this point. Spotted lanternfly, I personally took possession of 20 traps yesterday. They were delivered here by Mike Dorgan, our survey coordinator. That's about a third of the traps I'll have available for the PRISMs, so I can start distributing some of these. I'm still waiting on completion of a data sheet from our IT folks so that everyone, whether it's PRISMs or DOT partners or others, are all reporting the SLF trap data exactly the same way, in uniform and consistent ways, to kind of streamline the data reporting from last year. We had some headaches, but the traps are now available. I'll start distributing some of those. Appreciate all the PRISM's help with those. There was a detection, a delimiting survey in the area around Binghamton that was conducted last month. Additional surveys are being carried out in that area now. We are working with our plant protection and quarantine partners over at USDA in Nassau, Suffolk, Orange, Rockland, and Westchester counties, and delimiting those finds as well. And also we're working with our state partners such as the PRISMs and others on preparing for the what we expect to be an extremely busy SLF season, unfortunately. That's all I have. I'm sorry I took up so much time. So.
Quite all right. Thanks for the update, Tom. And I believe the last one on the phone we haven't heard from is Sarah Learn.
Good morning, this is Sarah Leonard, the district environmental resource technician, and I don't have any updates for right now.
Okay, did I miss anyone on the phone? I think we got everyone. Travis Ganter.
Yeah, Travis Ganter, Fort Drum Natural Resources. No updates.
Thanks, Travis. Anyone else? Great, so we'll jump right in here. I just have a few things I'd like to cover, and then you'll hear from the rest of the team here. And as I mentioned during the agenda overview, I just wanted to share a little bit of programmatic things with everyone. And it helps us for a couple of reasons. One is to stay on track with our contractual deliverables. And it's always nice to share with our partners kind of, where we're at with all of these mid-contract programs and projects. And then, kind of plant the seed and be thinking about, where we've been with our PRISM, where we're going with our PRISM, perhaps during our next contract. And so every quarter I have to submit lengthy quarterly reports, and we're kind of at the peak or the just past the halfway mark of this particular 5-year contract that we're in. And so it's nice to kind of be transparent, have this discussion, and then see what kind of comments I might get back over the next year prior to the end of this contract. It won't take a lot of time on this with you, but as I mentioned, we're in the 4th year of our 3rd contract. Each contract is a 5-year contract. Contract number 1, our first contract, was primarily strategic planning. A lot of you participated with our strategic planning sessions or were on one of our ranger teams. And you can see the funding level there. Contract number 2 was kind of where we refined our programs. We made a permanent educator hire, Megan. And we really started to dig in and develop those programs and projects. In our 3rd contract, we decided to move away from seasonals and move towards more towards having permanent regular employees. So that's when we brought on Robert, our terrestrial coordinator, and Brittney, our aquatic coordinator. And we also have Zack, who is with the Adirondack PRISM. But during this contract, we kind of shared that position because we had a need for his expertise as a GIS and data analyst, but not necessarily full-time. So we kind of shared that position with the Adirondack PRISM. So this allowed us to kind of maximize our impact. We strategically planned, we refined our programs, and now we kind of raise the bar. Let's have, see how we can maximize our impact. And I think that the various contract funding levels are parallel with our accomplishments and our performance over the year. And so, this year, I'd like to say we're kind of at a peak, if you will. Going through the planning, the refinement, really nailing some of these programs down to maximize our conservation impact. And as you'll hear in a few moments, some of our programs wind down after this year by design. And soon we'll need to be thinking about, a new contract and what might that look like and what programs, aside from the core programs, we might want to develop further or bring into it based on having an impact on our whole invasive species effort. We might want to think about things like being more carbon oriented or climate oriented with a lot of our work, for example. And so our core program, you're all familiar with this. We have prevention. We do a lot of things. We have been doing a lot of things with our prevention efforts. We serve on various committees. We collaborate with state agencies, serve on some national committees. We participated with things like Part 575 regs. We have a relatively robust early detection program. As you know, we established priority conservation areas or PCAs and highly probable areas back in our strategic planning sessions. We now have a tier list of species, and we continue to search dozens of HPAs each year, and over the years, I would say it's probably upward into the thousands. And you'll hear a little bit later in the program that we're looking at developing what we call priority conservation area profiles and scorecards. Rapid response and management, we continue to suppress and eradicate species, targeted species within our PCAs. We have built up our ecological restoration program for enhancing biological diversity. Big project on the Salmon River, y'all may recall, we're doing something very similar on Sandy and South Sandy. Brittney, yeah. So we've kind of tested how that works, suppression followed by restoration, and it seems to do quite well. So we're following that approach on another large scale project. And we continue to influence behavioral change through our education outreach activities. And each of us are now serving on kind of statewide committees. So the PRISM leaders all get together on a quarterly basis. So I meet with all the other PRISMs, PRISM leaders to troubleshoot, talk shop, see what's working well, see what's not working well, things like that. The terrestrial coordinators all meet once in a while, quarterly, or I don't know what the frequency is.
We meet monthly.
There you go.
Summertime.
Okay. The aquatic coordinators meet quarterly, and the educators meet
Every other month.
every month. So it's a nice network of information sharing and getting new ideas and modifying old ideas, things like that. So come a long ways with that. On top of our core programming, we have what we call special initiatives that we intentionally have been building into our contracts. And so, I guess what I would say is, what does all this mean? It means we're making good progress towards our mission objectives. We're creating new approaches that other PRISMs have, in some cases, been inclined to adopt. And we've even started to incorporate things like climate and carbon into our work. So we have to think about, where we're going from here. We have our Tug Hill ISPZ and forest restoration project that we worked on. There's 28,000 plus trees we planted. A whole bunch of trees, native of course. After suppression of a couple of invasive species, and that was in the core forest. We have our urban forest sustainability initiative. Turns out that the urban forest sustainability guide is getting a lot of traction around the state. We've planted a lot of trees or helped communities here in SLELO to plant street trees. That is a particular program that peaks this year and ends after this year. So we won't be assisting communities with planting street trees, but the urban guide will still be available, as will the PowerPoint presentation that Robert's created on that. Our biological control program is going quite strong, I would say. You'll hear more about that from Robert later in the program. And our aquatic restoration initiative, where we're working on Sandy and South Sandy and Eastern Lake Ontario tribs, doing invasive suppression followed by restoration. Very robust program out there. As is our watercraft inspection and stewardship program. We're increasing up to 12 stewards this year. Again, Brittney will report out more on that later in the program. And environmental DNA monitoring. We kind of brought this back to the table several years ago. I believe just over half of the PRISMs now are using eDNA in some fashion. As is New York DEC is actually has a more robust eDNA program as well. And then other things such as the Black River Trail feasibility study, and also the ELOD Dunes initiative, which you'll hear more about later in the program. So again, I wanted to share these things with everyone as kind of I would say like an interim contractual midpoint for a couple of reasons, so that I can, include, our engagement on this topic in my reports, be transparent about it, but more so to be thinking about where we're going to go next time. Do we just keep doing the same things? Core program wise, will probably all those elements will be there. But do we want to expand them, temper them, things like that? In terms of our special initiatives, again, do you want to continue with more of the same special initiatives, or is there a way we can build climate and carbon into those better, or do something different, bigger, better, raise the bar? So if you have any comments or suggestions, or just want to talk about it, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email sometime. As always, I'm big on increasing our conservation impact. And I think, Team SLELO is going to say that all too often. But no sense in spinning our wheels. Let's go for it. Let's really hunker in and make the impact that is part of our mission. Any comments or thoughts on that before we move on? Yes.
As far as looking for the next, towards the next 5 years, are you staying with your current, staffing capacity, or are you looking to add more? Because that can kind of help jumpstart conversations on, priorities and adding things or shifting.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would be inclined to say that don't know if we'll increase staff unless there's a blinding need to do that. Shifting roles and responsibilities is always certainly possible. And the thing that we have to think about from a host organization standpoint is this little thing called EDA or something. Every time we have a person on staff, the funding we get from the state doesn't pay for everything. So the Nature Conservancy has to pick that up. And they have this formula that they use where you have to either break even on it. But if we can't at least break even on it, then we don't do it, so to speak. So it's a tough one to figure out. Like I said, there's just certain things that you can't pay for using state funding. So the host organization has to pay for it, and it can be substantial. So thank you, TNC, for doing that. Anything else?
There's opportunity to build in the kind of monitoring for impacts of those sleeper species that haven't registered on our tiers so far, but with climate change, we know that they're coming, and there may be opportunity to build some resilience to that future.
That's a good idea. I know NESRI, New York Invasive Species Research Institute, has an eye on sleepers. And they talk about it a lot at various meetings. So I think it would be a matter of keeping an eye on those and trying to develop a method to kind of see them coming, maybe you might want to say. And then if that being the case, we could add them to maybe tier 1, or who knows, we could invent a tier 0 sleeper column. But that's a good idea. Anyone on the phone have any comments on this before we move on? All righty then. So real briefly, I just wanted to bring up the Eastern Lake Ontario Dunes Initiative. And I'm not going to talk science on this. Brittney will do that. But as you know, each year we have special project funding available for different projects. Excuse me. And I'd like to share with everyone where that funding is going each year. And I wanted to bring out the ELOD, the Dunes Phase 2 project, if you will. Not just because that's where we're spending our special project funding this coming year, but just to highlight a sense of collaboration that's occurring with this. And we started out phase 1 working with the Dunes Foundation. Then we received endorsements from the Dune Coalition. And we have a multitude of other partners who are participating in the different phases of this project. And, as a PRISM, it's all about the partnership. And what's a partnership about? It's about collaborating, working together on things. So you'll hear more specifically about the Dunes project But, we're collaborating, as I said, with a lot of partners, the town of Sandy Creek, the PRISM, Dunes Foundation, Coalition, Parks, consultants, private landowners. And I love to see this.
Opened up a can of worms, didn't we?
No,
In a
but
great way.
that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about.
No worms, no worms. Just a lot of Craig.
No, hammerhead worms, right, Sue?
What's that?
The new hammerhead worm,
No.
right? Did I mispronounce there?
Yeah.
Can of hammerhead worms.
Oh, with the hammerhead, yeah, that whole thing.
But this is what a PRISM is all about. It's about doing our work, to complete our objectives and our missions by collaborating. And I like it, and I just can't say enough about it. So, moving right along, and I know Tom's on the call. He's probably going to call me out on this, but I hope he can add to it. I just wanted to mention that earlier this year, Ag and Markets, Division of Plant Industry, added some staff. You may recall a number of years ago, we had a representative from Ag and Markets here talking about inspections, the different inspections that they've done and how those things work. And Tom's a representative now. And so they've, earlier this year, they've added staff, expanded their coverage area, and added, I believe, an additional region for their horticulture inspectors, which is a good thing. And I'll call on Tom here in a moment, but as I understand it, Region 5 was split into Region 5 and 6. There are 4 new inspectors and 1 administrative support person. And I believe, through doing this, they want to be able to do more inspections of more materials and, kind of raise the bar a little bit on getting some of these inspections done. And I believe SLELO is in both Region 4 and 6. Tom is still our primary contact for this. Tom, can you add anything? I think it's important that our partners are aware of this.
Sure. So with the current array of projects and programs that we're working on, whether it's European cherry fruit fly, plum pox, which has been eradicated, but we're still monitoring because it's still present on the Canadian side. So we'll be in a perpetual monitoring situation. Box tree moth. There's been a lot of things happening along the Canadian border. That's why we're kind of concentrating more staff in that area. Long Island is pretty well staffed with port services and also with Asian Longhorn Beetle program project folks. So there's a lot of folks downstate and not as many upstate. So we're trying to kind of balance that out. It's been many years in the making. We had some retirements of different supervisors and promotions of supervisors. So that kind of helped facilitate the shakeup of the regions. Originally, we had 4 regions, and 3 and 4 were kind of combined, and then part of 4 and 5 and 6 were what was the old Region 4. So in the last 3 years or 2.5 years, things have really been shaken up. The most recent change was the one Rob mentioned, where we split Region 5 into 2 regions, north and south, basically based on program functions, and then also locations of staff. So you can see the breakout coverage here for the individual horticulture inspectors, what areas they cover. This is not set in stone. They don't get to the county line and stop their car. There's gray area. There is a solid line when it comes to the state line, because we're state employees. It's very difficult for us to travel over into a neighboring state. But when it comes to the inspectors, they move around. We have that, I mentioned earlier about the delimiting survey in Binghamton. So we had inspectors from all over the state kind of congregate in Broome County to facilitate that inspection. So there is some movement. It's not that these are the only inspectors that work in those counties, but these are the ones that are assigned to those counties. One other thing I wanted to mention, now this is for the field folks. Administratively here in Albany, we had a recent occurrence that no one in the department can remember, that we actually hired pretty much a full staff. We've been very lean on administrative staff, which pulls away from everyone else's duties, whether it's the supervisors, the individuals in the field, or myself, or other program managers like Mike Dorgan and John Morawski. We have a full complement of admins now. We have 3 term administrative personnel that were recently hired here in Albany, and they support all these, the Asian Longhorn Beetle program, box tree moth, all that, licensing for nursery growers and dealers. That's a full-time job in itself, just handling the licenses. So we have more help now than we have before. We're a much smaller agency than, say, DEC. I joke around that, they have their invasive species bureau and Ag and Markets has me. But that's really the fact that we're just a much smaller agency. So, getting these few positions, the 3 admin positions here in Albany, the 1 in Region 6, and then the 4 new hires in the western part of the state for us is huge. That's like, it's been many, many decades since we've had the ability to be staffed this way. So, it's really exciting. One thing I forgot to mention before, I just sent Brittney a message about it, and I sent Rob an email yesterday. Aside from this, a little bit of not good news, the LSR, the U.S. Forest Service LSR grant that we applied for the weed-free aggregate program, pilot program, was not funded. The application was accepted. We were 32 on the list of 40-something applicants, and they funded 18 of those applications. So we did not get that grant did not get funded. I got that information yesterday. So I just wanted to pass that on. I forgot to mention that earlier. So
Next time, right, Don?
yeah, exactly. I'd had we might have to just try a different tactic. Maybe not so much the LSR grant, but there are other U.S. Forest Service grants available. It may be a better fit for some of those. Some conversations I've had with Mike Bona with the U.S. Forest Service, he kind of indicated that they really like the idea. They really want to fund it, but just the LSR program with the program change that they had last year makes it more difficult to fund this. That program will just consistently score lower based on their new parameters that they set up last year. So they haven't given up. It's not dead in the water, but we're just beat down again. So
line item in the EPF. So a quick question back to this, your inspectors here.
Yep.
So can you shed any light on the potential impact of this? I mean, do you expect to be able to increase inspections by a certain percentage, or is there some other metric that you're hoping will change by making these inspector changes?
Well, I don't know if so much if there's a metric, but there is that expectation that increased inspections will happen. A registered nursery grower, when they first register, they get an initial inspection. They have to have an inspection before they get their certificate, especially for growers. They're a much higher risk than dealers. So growers are the ones that grow the plants and they also sell them. The dealers are the ones that purchase their plants in and resell them. Like, think of like Home Depot and your local gas station that's selling mums or tulips, or the grocery store that's selling tulips. That would be a dealer versus a grower, which is typically what we think of as a nursery. So they get their initial inspection in the last few years, since COVID really, the increase in nursery registrations has really increased dramatically. So they can get those first year inspections done, and then they have to be inspected on a 2-year basis. So they get inspected every other year after that. With all the other program work that was going on and retirements and attrition, we were barely able to make those inspections occur. Even during COVID, they did, I want to say it was like 900 or 800 inspections statewide. I can't remember the number off the top of my head. So even during those challenging times, they were out there doing the inspections, but this will allow us to do more frequent inspections, not just the minimum. So one little anecdote was one of the areas that one of the new inspectors in Region 6, and I guess he was in Wayne County, so just outside of your area, but he was doing an inspection of a nursery 2 days ago and came across prohibited plant. One prohibited plant, but still he came across a prohibited plant that was being offered for sale. And so there, those increased that new staff, then those increased inspections are already, showing results that, the enforcement of either Part 575 or other regulations, or, the inspections for Xanthomonas and the Tabamo virus variant, that those increased inspections are going on, and we wouldn't be able to do as many of those with less staff. So there might not be a metric, but there's already anecdotal evidence that it's making an impact. So.
Great. Well, thanks, Tom. And I think it was Ethan Angel who was at our meeting a number of years ago. Do you remember that, Sue?
Yeah, and Wayne was too.
And
and
Wayne,
Dorothea,
Ben,
yeah.
both here. All right, great. Thanks, Tom.
No problem.
So moving right along, we'll hear from Robert on some terrestrial restoration and resiliency initiatives. All yours, Robert.
All right, good morning, everybody. This is my first in-person presentation in a couple of years now. So it's good to see everybody in person. All right, I'd like to start off by talking about our 2022 early detection efforts. We'll be going back to the same 9 priority conservation areas that Brittney and I visited in 2020. Most of these involve both a terrestrial and aquatic survey, while a few are just aquatic or just terrestrial. In addition, we have many other opportunities to survey other areas, and you see those on the right side as alternative sites. We're going to try to get to those as many as we can, time permitting. We have a very busy schedule, so we're going to try to get as many as we can. We're going to prioritize the Fish Creek. That's the one that runs into Oneida Lake, and also Muskellunge Creek. And then if we have more time, if we get those 2, we'll go to one of the other ones or more. All right, Hemlock woolly Adelgid surveys. So far for the year, we did 10 sites. We still have 4 more surveys planned. We're going to get 3 of those done by the end of the month, and then 1 is going to be first week of May. As some of you probably know, the crawler stage of HWA is starting to come out. So, we're taking precautions, and we recommend that volunteers don't go out and do the surveys at this time of year, just to reduce the amount of spread that the crawlers can have an opportunity there. We don't want to move the HWA. Of the 10 sites that we have surveyed so far, we found 1 site with HWA, and that's Noise Bird Sanctuary. At Noise Bird Sanctuary, which is owned by the Onondaga Audubon Society, we found 5 trees with HWA on the lower needles, which is the only place that we can survey for. We went out with the land manager, David Fitch. So, he was aware right away. He was, on the spot to see that. We're going to go back later this year with a small crew of volunteers. And we're going to do a survey of his hemlock trees. We're going to assume that many or most of these trees have HWA. Reason being is that HWA generally starts at the top of the tree and works its way down. And so if we find 5 trees that have HWA down at the level that we can see them, there has to be many of those other ones that we did not find, but the HWA is present in the upper ones. So we're gonna take volunteers to delineate the stand for them. Yes.
I'm sorry, Robert, where is the noise bird?
Oh, I'll show you on a map here in a second.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're gonna take volunteers to help delineate the hemlock stand for the Onondaga Audubon Society. They'll be out there with some volunteers too. Get an idea of how many trees they have out there and the size of the trees. So that they have a sense of how much chemical treatment they will need to provide for noise bird sanctuary. There'll also be a summary report available soon, sometime shortly after the first week of May when we finish that last site. All right, so far in the SLELO PRISM region, there's been 6 sites found. 4 of those sites were found by SLELO PRISM, and 2 of those sites were found by New York State Parks. And as you can see, Noise Bird Sanctuary 2022 there, the leftmost one. With the exception of Oswego County reforestation area, the general trend is along the coastline of Lake Ontario and moving northward. So we're going to continue to do surveys like we did this year to the east of the coastline and to the north of the areas we found it at so far. But I mean, we have no reason to believe they're not going to keep on moving northward. And I don't know if you can quite see it, but it's, you know, you can see Pulaski, so you know we're not that terribly far from the Jefferson County border. So we'll be checking that coastline out next year. All right.
Can I just say one quick thing? So when we identify these, you know, our response is to work with the landowner on determining treatments, chemical, biological, whatever. So there is follow-up to this.
Yes.
If this is moving northward and you want to get the word out to more landowners and volunteers, if you want to submit like a couple of slides to me, I can share them for Dune Coalition. As well, just to get people, you know, looking out for it on their own properties in the area. And
Yeah, absolutely. The more eyes on the ground, the better for us. And we're more than happy to talk about it. We also collaborate with the Hemlock Initiative from Cornell, and they're also more than happy to talk about it and provide more information to private and public.
Yeah, we got a lot of private and public, you know, landowners that come. So if you want to start, you know, targeting a little bit more outreach around that Eastern Lake Ontario area, I just need a couple of slides before June 1st, and I can help get the word out.
So this new county reforestation area does have it?
At very, very small quantities. We found that in 2021, and it was only like a couple. I mean, Brittney has an amazing vision, or because I still don't know how she did that. It was like a HWA, not just like several on a branch. It was a HWA. I counted one tree, thinking one on another, and somehow she spotted those.
That's as far north as you've done.
This is far east as we go. We've gone north, and we go as far north as Javelin State Forest on that St. Lawrence, Jefferson County border. Yeah, but the reforestation area does have it, but it's, you know, it's at a low number, and Joe Cherivolati there is aware of that. All right, on to the Urban Forest Sustainability Initiative update. You know, it's all about promoting like strategies that will increase the resilience of urban forest to invasive pests, pathogens, and climate change. This is the last year in our contract that we can offer a $5,000 reimbursement to communities that want to participate in this program and that purchase up to $5,000 in native and non-native, non-invasive trees. We can do that for 2 communities this year. The 2 that we are looking at right now are Utica, which has agreed to participate, and they are making plans to do a fall planting. We still have to give them a presentation, it's TBD, but they will get, we'll give them a presentation to members of their community that are interested in the urban forest program for their community, somewhere prior to fall. Recently talked to Ogdensburg, so I'm in discussion with them. The person I was talking to is like, yes, to discuss that, you know, with supervisor and other folks to see if they, you know, agree to participate. If so, that's like, we'll plan probably most likely a fall planting as well. And a presentation will follow, will come up before the planting. You know, we have a guide too that we provide to them. It goes through all the strategies, and really the presentation is just a condensed version of the guide and just goes through the things that are in the guide. But we provide that guide to each and every community. And, you know, whether they you know, participate or not, we can provide them the guide. Anybody can get the guide. You can go to the SLELO PRISM website, and the guide is available right there for anybody that wants to take a look at it. There's a lot of people involved in it, including the DEC that thoroughly reviewed it. So it's very well, it's very, you know, it was very thoroughly reviewed prior to release. I gave a, you know, in the last month or so, I've given a presentation to the, at the Terrestrial Coordinators meeting. A couple days ago, we had an exhibit at the Tug Hill Commission local government conference at Turning Stone. And so, you know, I talked to anybody that wanted to talk about the program. We had a pamphlet for them, and I told them, you know, they could, you know, get the guide right there on the website, which is, you know, mentioned in the pamphlet. We also I'm going to be doing a presentation for the Black River Watershed Conference on June 8th. And July 21st or the 23rd is the New York State Relief Conference will be held at Jefferson Community College. And I will also be doing a presentation about the Urban Forest Sustainability Program for that. All right, treatment site assessments. Every year, as a result of efforts from our contractor, Miller Sturf, who does our herbicide applications, and the surveys that myself and Brittney conduct each and every year, our numbers of treatment sites switch up. Some go away, new ones come in, and I know there's a lot of numbers. It's really busy. Basically, this is a list of all our priority conservation areas, our sites that we that treatments occur at. There's the numbers of the treatments by the years and by the invasive species that we have treating. If you see on here, you'll see the swallowwort, well, total numbers, we are actually going up 12. So we'll be sending our contractor to do treatments at 12 more sites this year. We start with the swallowwort. You'll see that swallowwort is down 8, and you can see that's mostly from Deer Creek and El Dorado Black Pond. But in reality, it's not actually a decrease in management. What it is a reconfiguration of the treatment areas. There was treatment areas in the past before my time that were adjacent to each other. So really what I did is I merged some treatment areas. So the 10 became 5, like say for Deer Creek. Now there was a decrease that you can't see here in 2021 for Deer Creek. That's because Deer Creek was doing timber harvest last year, so there were some sites we could not go to. We will be reevaluating that area and coordinating with Bonnie Parton about areas that we can go do, we can survey this year. So the numbers might actually jump up next year for areas that we treat swallowwort at Deer Creek. Phragmites, it went up by 7, and that was really just a result of the early detection surveys, mostly from the early detection surveys from last year. And so sites like ISBZ, Little John, and Upper and Lower Lakes there all increased, and that was because we found some additional sites last year when we did our surveys. Japanese knotweed, big jump there was Upper and Lower Lakes. Once again, early detection survey, we found 5 sites that we did not see before, and we're adding them to our list for Miller's turf to do chemical treatments at. Yellow iris remained the same at 1. And Oriental bittersweet was another thing there. We, if you were around a couple of years ago, we added that as one of our our management sites for on our tier list, or managed species, that is. And so it was the first time we were really out there, Upper and Lower Lakes looking for Oriental bittersweet, and we found a whole lot of it. So that's why it jumped up from 2 to 8, and our grand total went from 3 to 10. PCAs, you see drops in Deer Creek and El Dorado Black Pond. And that's for the reason I mentioned earlier, that's mergers, not a change in actual management. And Upper and Lower Lakes, because of the early detection survey we conducted last year, greatly increased in the numbers of sites that we're going to send our contractor to.
I have a question.
Yes.
Are the field reports for 2021 online yet? Or-
Stay tuned.
Okay. Because it might make sense, with, staff turnover and other things, to update the dunes initiative. It can be like a living document. All I have to do is, put a blurb in, this was treated in these sites in 2021, and then a link.
Yeah.
That could be a good idea.
The answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
Megan's
think
got a
it'll
whole
take long to
section on
update.
her new improved
The website.
website update.
Okay.
The bigger and better, and she's gonna talk about that.
I'll follow up and see when those are out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, giant hogweed control. Oh, right. Giant hogweed control should say 2022 typo. Anyway. Giant hogweed treatments, they occur every May. Is part of the New York State Giant Hogweed Program. To do a quick review on how this all works. Hogweed sightings are reported to the DEC. They have their hotline. They call them, they don't call us. The program consolidates all of the reports that come in and keeps a record of all the previous sightings. And then they distribute a list to us of sites that we're responsible for. We get Miller's Turf, our contractor, to go out to those sites, and they'll either do a chemical treatment, or they'll do a manual removal, which is called a root cut method. And if you look down here at the bottom, you'll see that we'll monitor those sites and treat them until we don't find anything. And then we continue to monitor for 3 years. And if there's nothing found, it's like they will not be monitored again until they hit 6 years. And then if there's nothing found, they'll be monitored again at 9 years. And then it's considered eradicated and removed out of our list of responsible sites, our sites we're responsible for. If at any time during that period, Giant hogweed shows up back up again, it goes right back to the beginning. Yeah, so it can be quite a long process. If you can imagine if they found something at 6 years, 6 years are just gone. Goes right back to back to zero. All right, last year, we had a total of 59 sites. The breakdown is follows. One site, we have no permission. We never get permission from these folks. They like their giant hogweed for some reason. We cannot make, we can't force our way in. We must get the private landowner's permission. 40 sites, there was no germination. That's a great thing. So we can start that clock like I was talking about. 7 sites were treated, 1 using the root cut, and 6 were sprayed. And 11 were not monitored, meaning that there was nothing present there for at least 3 years, but they haven't hit the 6-year or the 9-year mark. So they were not monitored for that year. Of those 59 sites, 1 site passed that final test and they hit 9 years giant hogweed free, and we're no longer responsible for that site. So that brings us down to 58. The 58 carries over to this year. And how that breaks down for this year is 34 are annual monitor sites, meaning that they are, they have not met the 3-year no presence. So they might be no presence last year, but they need to have 3 years before we stop monitoring them for a couple of years. So that's where they're at. We have 2 that are due for their 6-year monitor. 4 are due for their 9-year monitor site. We hope we don't find anything. We can get rid of 4 sites just like that if they pass. 18 are not monitored because they're in those gray zones, year 4, 5, 7, or 8. And we have 4 new sites that were reported to the DEC, and they passed them along to us. So 58 plus 4, 62 new sites or 62 sites that we are responsible for this year. And today, 49% of the sites that we've been responsible for are giant hogweed free, have been giant hogweed free for 3 or more years. Of those, 58% involved a manual treatment to reduce the use of herbicide. Some were exclusively the use of a manual. Many were alternating, like if they had large quantities at first, they might have chemically sprayed 1 year, and then as the numbers reduced there of giant hogweed at the site, they started using the root cut method. But that's still something that we do to try to reduce the use of herbicides at the sites.
Is that photo there our no access site?
That looks like our no access
It
site.
is, yeah.
Yes, I have a picture that looks just like it. When I went and took a picture last year, I kind of ran across the street. I didn't know how aggressive the guy was. I just kind of took a quick picture and ran back into my car.
Looks like they do a little landscaping.
Yeah.
And if you can put some wild parsnip around it, it'll look really nice.
Yeah, that's definitely the site. Oh, and there you go. There's the number once again. So if you see any giant hogweed, please report it to them. I mean, you can report it to us, but we're going to report it to them. So you could, skip the middle person and just call them. All right, as part of our integrated pest management efforts, we have started to add a manual mechanical treatment. Started to add manual mechanical treatments as a method at the priority conservation areas. Because there's a lot of particularly swallowwort out there. And much of that swallowwort is in low quantities, and it's sparse and scattered in distribution. And that is not really the best, the best, the best method is not necessarily chemical for that. For chemical, you want to have patches. You don't, want your treatment person with a big backpack chasing down one plant here and one plant there across acres of land. So it's just makes more sense there to get a full crew of people, not your one herbicide applicator, to go out and do manual removals. They're really simple. You can take like a shovel or a garden rake or something like that, put it down on the ground, move it around a little bit to loosen up the soil, and gently lift. It's like we have black bags there that we can put them in, and then we'll solarize them for like a month. And that way, all that like swallowwort that disperses and grows, pops up one here and one there, we can get rid of that before it becomes patches. My idea is to really drop down the populations of swallowwort in our priority conservation areas. So we're not playing back and forth game. Yes.
Do you have tentative dates that you're looking for volunteers? Okay, just kidding.
I was gonna say next, Megan is leading the efforts for this, which is highly appreciated because.
There'll be announcements. Well, just check your inboxes. If you are interested and you want me to note your name today, I will do that. That way I can bug you later. Bug me, and I will bug you. So be serious if you're in it.
Yeah.
Bug me. Feel free to bug
As
me.
long as I'm available.
Yeah, but yeah, Megan, like she's just saying, is leading the efforts. She did a little test site last year at Deer Creek, and that went well. So we're expanding a little bit more this year. So last year was just swallowwort at one site. This year it's swallowwort and yellow iris.
Put together another slide, Megan.
And we're looking to go to 4 sites: Deer Creek, El Dorado, Black Pond, Oneida Lake, 3 Mile Bay Wildlife Management Area. Megan does have a group of volunteers that New York State Parks was nice enough to provide for Megan to help with this. And we very much appreciate and thank New York State Parks for helping, for providing these volunteers. But we could always use more volunteers. The more volunteers, the better. More eyes out there, the more the plants will catch. So if you're interested, please contact Megan at megan.pistoles@tnc.org.
Robert, there's a question on the line.
Yes,
Is Maria?
okay.
Yeah.
Maria?
Yeah, she's.
Hey, this is Maria. I don't know if you can hear me. I was just trying to say that we're happy to help because that's going to be my.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. It's like this is something I've had in the plans for some time, and I really appreciate you Parks helping with this, because I want to make this really be an effective method of control on our priority conservation areas.
That made me think of, speaking of parks and volunteer opportunities, and I don't know if somebody on parks, from Parks on the Line would want to say something, but I Love My Park Day is on May 7th. And some of those events, I believe, have an invasive species control,
Excellent.
component. I can't say off the top of my head which ones, but if you go to the Parks and Trails New York website, they do have, kind of all the sites where the events are held, and then it'll describe what they're doing at each event. So
All right, so folks will check out the
I think
site.
there's one at Wellesley Island, and there's one at Black River Trail, and there's one at Selkirk Shores too.
Yeah, and that's the importance of our partnership. It's like we alone, us 4 folks from SLELO prison, there's no way we can manage all of the invasive species across the 5-county region. There's more counties than there is us. So that's the importance of our partners and volunteers. And we literally could not do this without our partners and volunteers. So we thank all of you for that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of private landowners that, are on our listserv for dunes that could, people are asking, when's dune grass planting, when's this, like, people want to get out there, so get their hands dirty.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
If I can deliver on what I just said.
All right, is another, another example of us using the integrated pest management system, right? We already talked about the chemical treatments. We already talked the manual one. Last one to talk about, biological controls. I've been working very hard on trying to increase the amount of biological controls being used. It's for many of our invasives, it is the long-term solution. I mean, there's no way to eradicate the populations, and to get these populations under control without us continuing to do treatments forever on them. When we have biological control options, we're going to start using biological control options, because they will keep the invasives at a population that the natives can survive and can cope with. Starting up at the top, pale swallowwort. If you've been to a few of these partner meetings before, you know we've been doing a pale swallowwort biocontrol for many years now. We're again going to do it this year. And this is quite the collaboration that we have. I was just putting down notes on my paper of how many different groups are involved in it. We have NISRI, University of Rhode Island there is involved in it. Also, I mentioned it here, like Audrey and Carrie there, yes, so NISRI, Brandon, Hollis there, as like I talked to her and him on Tilt. They did have a land on Grenadier Island. They've recently sold it, but they've were nice enough to make that connection with the new private landowner who has no issues with us sending up a cage and doing releases on his property. And they also helped me out a lot with the getting transportation to Grenadier Island. So really, we have a lot of quite the collaborative effort to make this happen every year. Like last year, we're going to set up 2 cages at Grenadier Island and 2 cages at Whaley State Parks, which is the other one I was just thinking, New York State Parks. Also a collaborator in this effort. Timeline should be June like last year, which is perfect, because if it's like last year and our first generation of larvae are low in numbers, they'll produce, if you release them early, like in beginning of June, like we're doing, they'll be able to produce 2 generations in the same year. So that's what we did last year. And then we got a better population of larvae in the second generation. So we just basically left them in the cage. Once they have, they're in large quantities and they eat up the leaves on the swallowwort, we lift the cage and we cross our fingers and hope they will establish. I will be doing part of a follow-up study this year there where they're going to see check on establishment. More to follow on that, and I'll give the details probably next partner meeting on how that is going. Emerald ash borer. I put in a request for several sites across SLELO PRISM on the behalf of a couple different organizations to the USDA for EAB biocontrol. And we were able to get one, which was pretty good out of new sites. There was only 4 new sites in New York selected by the USDA. For the releases, and we got 1 in the SLELO PRISM region. And that is going to be at Rice Creek Field Station, if you're familiar with that area. It's really nice. It's part of SUNY Oswego. The releases will be a lot of releases. I'll be doing a lot of work this year because there's 3 different species of parasitoid wasps that'll be released, and they have a spring and a fall release time periods. And you have to release them for like 3 weeks or something like that in the spring, 3 weeks in the fall for each one of those species, and sometimes they overlap, and it's gonna be a lot of work, but it'll be well worth it. In future years, I plan on still putting out that request for partners there to send me requests. But I'm only one person, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna have representatives from those organizations be responsible for the releases. And I then being experienced at it, will initially go out with them until they feel comfortable and be available to consult with. And that way we can have multiple release sites going on at the same time, because I forgot to mention, this is a 2-year release program as well. So next year, they're gonna send me more of these 3 species, and I'll be releasing them at Rice Creek Field Station again. And then later on, there's actually you have to test for establishment. That's another couple-year period. So it's a very long-term effort, but hopefully if these establish, we'll be able to bring down that EAB population, and we'll be able to preserve that new generation of ash coming up into the forests. And we won't lose our ashes. Hemlock woolly Adelgid. HWA, I've been consulting with the Hemlock initiative, and we're a little late on getting our approvals for a release this year from Oswego County to get biocontrol release for this year. But we should have those approvals by next year, and we will be able to get a hold of some silverflies and the Lyricobius beetle for HWA, and that'll be at Independence Park where we found HWA last year. So 2023 for that. Purple loosestrife biocontrol, the Gallericella biocontrol has been around for a long time. It's been around a long time, but when we've been going out doing our early detection surveys, we saw that in certain areas, the purple loosestrife was kind of out of control. So those areas, obviously don't have at least a high quantity, if any quantity at all, of these biocontrol agents. So we're going to release some of the beetles in a few of the sites. We're looking at El Dorado, Black Pond, Lakeview, and I like 3 Mile Bay Wildlife Management Area come this summertime. And that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, you can ask them now or ask them at the end. Otherwise, Brittney will give you some great updates there on our aquatic program.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about the watercraft inspection steward program. And this is exciting. So some of you might remember we increased our steward program from 4 to 10 when I came on board, and we started a partnership with the Thousand Islands Land Trust to help us co-administer the program. And so that went really well the last couple of years. Last year, the water levels in Lake Ontario were really low. So we saw all of the launches on that eastern shoreline, and even up into like the first couple launches of the St. Lawrence River. There wasn't as many boats there, but we saw a lot more boats inland. This year, the water levels are projecting to be more at a kind of a normal level or a little bit high. So those launches that people weren't able to use with their larger boats last year, we're anticipating we'll have a lot more people. We have been working really closely with other programs across the state to make sure that our steward program is standardized with the whole state, but then also we work in partnership with programs like state parks. So all of these light blue dots you can see on this map here are actually other programs at launches that we don't cover, but the other programs cover. So that includes like state parks, Adirondack Watershed, Finger Lakes PRISM, Capital PRISM, and there's so many more. So I won't name everybody. So the program, the training starts May 25th this year, and we always start typically the week before Memorial Day weekend to get the stewards trained. It's a really intense 3-day training. I say intense for them. I can only imagine how it is for them. We plan and prepare for it basically year round. And their primary duties of launch coverage will start that weekend. So that weekend of Memorial Day.
And so they'll get out there and start their inspections, but we always kind of add a few extra elements to the program to improve our reach and our coverage and make sure that more people are being made aware of. And I don't, is that a washing machine over there?
Yeah.
I know, I heard it too. So there's a washing machine over there running. So our stewards are participating in the Invasive Species Awareness Week, the Great Lakes AIS Landing Blitz. And so we'll be doing some like social media takeovers or some other fun things of ways that stewards can better engage people beyond the launches. Something new that we're adding this year is called the Launch and Learn. And this is just a way to try to get more people to come to the launches, interact with the stewards, and we'll be working with the stewards to develop like short programs people can come and participate in to learn a little bit more, but also to get people out and check out the launches and to check out some of the areas that we work in. We always have these like side projects too for the stewards because I mean sometimes it rains and we can't control that, and on really bad rainy cold stormy days nobody's boating. Most people aren't boating, some are, but you know typically those are the wild ones. But so we have the stewards write articles for local newspapers, we have them participate in water chestnut polls. Sometimes we'll partner them up to go to fishing tournaments, and if there's other events like the IRLC water quality conference or things like that, we can send stewards to. So if you have events or ideas or anything that you think that would be beneficial for the stewards, let me know and I can try to make that work. So if anyone has questions about the program or coverage too, you can contact me via email and talk more about that. So switching gears to from the prevention aspect and to that treatment world again, ecological restoration. So this is something that in the past couple of years has really been taking a hold in the SLELO PRISM, and we've been working really hard to increase programs, increase awareness of restoration projects, and try to encourage others to do the same with their invasive species work. And this is just so that we can take our work to the next level. So just go beyond doing those treatments and leaving those treatment sites, because oftentimes, unfortunately, when you do a treatment, invasive species are the next species that come in and start to grow in those areas. So with our assistance, we're promoting biodiversity. We're only introducing native species that have been found or are previously known to exist at those properties. And so that's something that's really exciting. And Rob talked about earlier, the collaboration and partnership involved in our restoration projects is sometimes pretty intense. There's a lot of people involved and interested in the project. So it's really great to have that support and that energy going towards improving these priority conservation areas. So that's something that we're very excited about. And I will talk to you about two of the projects. So our main project is originated in 3 tributaries, Eastern Lake Ontario. You guys all might remember Deer Creek, Sandy Creek, and South Sandy Creek. Based on our assessments, South Sandy Creek was in the need of most attention. And so that's where we kind of like honed in our focus. And so there were 3 phases, that initial assessment of the 3 tributaries. Last year, we started reducing the impacts of invasives by management, and we initiated this remediation phase, and that was introducing a seed mix of native species to those treatment sites, which I'm happy to report there's lots of cute little sprouts growing out there. So if anybody goes to South Sandy Creek, you can check them out.
And a fun education panel.
Yes, I know, we are working on that, getting it posted soon, or erected soon, or whatever you call it, interpretive panel. So this year we're excited because we're continuing that remediation. We're doing some more rehabilitation at this site, including adding some actual live native species and then also additional seed mixes. And so that's exciting because then we are doing some monitoring and setting up monitoring plots that were previously 100% covered in invasives, and we'll be able to track our results from there. So that's all exciting. I spoke ahead of my next slide, so I'll just kind of repeat quickly. So last year it was 3.2 acres of Phragmites and Japanese knotweed that were managed, and we had a seed mix of 11 different native species that we introduced there. And then that's a blurry picture of the interpretive panel that's being erected, and it will be up by the end of May. So very excited for that. Talk about just restoration and riparian areas and why they're really important to the aquatic ecosystems. So this is where the treatments that occurred. You can kind of see all those little small polygons. And as you can see, the Japanese knotweed and Phragmites was kind of really covering that whole riparian area. So it looks drastically different now than it used to, because it used to be just completely surrounded by Japanese knotweed or Phragmites. So doing a lot of work there. We're monitoring for all that regrowth. There is still, you know, when you do treatments with herbicide or applications, there is going to be regrowth over a couple of years. So there are a few sprouts that we did notice for the Japanese knotweed, but we're going to get out there. They'll be digging up some of those resprouts and then also doing herbicide treatments as well. So kind of trying to take multiple approaches for that. We did a drone flight in the phase 1, which is really exciting to me because it's more of a GIS based measurement. And so we have maps and we can actually track the differences with the restoration project through these drone maps that were created. So this actually right here is an example of it. And so when you look at Google or like Google Earth, when you look at those satellite images, you can only see a 2 foot by 2 foot per pixel area. With the drone, it's a 2 inch by 2 inch pixel. So like it is amazingly clear. You can get really close in and see actual plants and leaves and stuff. So I'm excited for that. June 11th, if you are looking to have fun on a Saturday, come hang out with SLELO PRISM. We're doing a hands-on plant identification with aquatic plant species and also some terrestrial species. This includes both native and invasives. We'll be doing a guided walk down the trail where the restoration projects are occurring. We'll be teaching people about doing the monitoring at the plots that we have. I'm at invasives, I'm naturalist, and we'll have our watercraft inspection stewards and our ROV there, as well as Megan, Robert will all probably be there, and all of our stewards. So come hang out with us. If you've never paddled South Sandy Creek, it's my favorite place to paddle. And it looks drastically different than it used to. So very exciting. So another special project from SLELO. So our special project funds for this year were allocated to the Eastern Lake Ontario Dunes Initiative that was initiated last year. So that's where our baseline assessment occurred in that 17-mile stretch of the dunes, and a couple areas were identified that could potentially benefit from management and restoration. So we are currently in phase 2 of that. So the phase 1 assessment is, I think, on our website, I think on the reports page, but if you can't find it, just let me know and I can send it to you. And there's a lot of information, including recommendations, information on the invasive species that were found at sites, and also treatment recommendations as well. So this is something that can be shared with the public and they might be able to utilize this for themselves as well. If it's not online, it will be soon. We've been doing a lot of work on our website, which you'll hear about in a minute. So there's definitely been some changes for us with that.
Have you hosted, like, obviously you've been giving the partners involved, has there been any follow-up meetings or, you know, to involve all of them?
Yeah, so we actually, so with the special project
I don't
funds
think
for,
I mean, from the Dune Coalition standpoint or Dunes Foundation standpoint, I haven't heard anything. I don't, is this on a shelf? Is it, like, yeah, it'd be nice to be invited.
yeah, of course. So I gave a short presentation on the project that we decided to work on based on that report and the information that's there. But so we looked at the sites that had Phragmites, and because of the work that we were already doing at South Sandy Creek, we wanted to remain focused on that species that's on our tier list. And so for our special project considerations, we had to look at location, accessibility, and when I say accessibility, that's in the manner of accessibility to contractors to be able to get to sites, the risk of spread from that site, and then also the estimated cost and benefit for those projects. After thorough review with a couple select partners, we determined that the North Sandy Pond site was actually something that was at the highest risk of spreading and continuing to spread. And so this is about 1.5 acres total of Phragmites over a 5 acre called a search area, but a 5 acre like polygon area that we were working in. And so part of the reasons why we did this was because there's a lot of work happening at the dunes north of, well, it's basically on the shoreline of North Sandy Pond, north of the channel, if anyone's familiar with that. And so we noticed that the Phragmites is rapidly being spread in the area, and it's a pretty good amount of space between the large populations that didn't previously have Phragmites that we've seen new growth into. And then they've been doing a lot of work with dredging and kind of working on improving the dunes there. So we also found that it would be beneficial to stop that Phragmites from growing into those dune systems and trying to reintroduce those native species from that same area. So that's what we're working on. We are working with, as Rob mentioned earlier, multiple partners are involved in this project. We have a subcontractor in place, and we will start work on May 9th. We'll be going out to the site. So very excited for that. We're working with state parks, 2 private landowners, as well as DEC and a couple other major partners involved in that. Yeah, question?
Are you doing any education outreach for the contractors that are the ones out there digging and potentially spreading things as they move equipment around?
So yeah, unfortunately, that is not part of this project at this time, but next year we're starting to work on more monitoring, and we'll probably be doing more outreach with those contractors to try to do that. So unfortunately, we have to get ahead of this game and then kind of do that all together, because yes, it is. So the one area that you can see in this picture here is where trucks access the beach. And so that's where we're also seeing a lot of spread happening of the Phragmites, is basically from where the access point is and over. But we are being sensitive that part of this is on private land. And so we do have to be sensitive to the private landowners and making sure that we're working with everybody and everyone is equally happy with the project. So it's very exciting. This is one of the pictures that you can see where there's kind of a not less dense, but you can see how dense this part is. And this is basically where the end of the really dense part is. And then you start seeing small sprouts happening and spreading down the dune. Yeah, Emily, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, as you do the Phragmites control, do you also have plans to replant, either, native dune
Yes.
grass, or you were probably gonna talk.
No, I'm talking about that on the sideline, but no, it's fine. So we are going to, so this year we're continuing to map those populations, especially because we went out and mapped them last year, and I've already mapped changes in those populations. So continuing that, we're also doing management and restoration simultaneously. So I went out last week, I don't even know what day it is. Sometime recently, I went out and planted about 100 shrubs in this area as well. And so all of that Phragmites in the interior dune system will be treated through a cut and drip method. So cut the live stem and dripping the herbicide down rather than spraying, just to reduce impact on other species. Although there is a segment we have to do foliar spray because the population is too dense. So we planted it's a protected species, the sand dune willow, which is very exciting. We love to see species that are protected and rare to our area. But then also we did some pussy willow, and I have red osier dogwood as well. That's rooting at my house. That will go there soon too. So that's all exciting. And part of that, we got additional monetary support through a water quality improvement plan or program. I can't remember what the P stands for, but WPIP grant. And so that will be going towards native shrub species as well. So we have a list of species that will be purchased with that funding to be planted at this whole site. And then as needed, we'll be doing additional support of beach grass and dune willow cuttings as well. So this is a really collaborative, very all over the board project. So we're working with a lot of different people so different groups have done beach grass plantings, different groups have done management or treatments. So it's a pretty diverse project with a lot of people who have knowledge and experience at the sites. Yeah, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'd love for June's Foundation to continue to be involved, so if you can invite me and my organization to those talks, that would be awesome.
Yep.
Planning ahead for fall. Obviously, we have relationships with those dredging contractors and stuff. If there's a way to, for the foundation, even just to pay for a power washer and just spray down Brian's wheels before he comes in and leaves, like, I'm happy to help, either approach the foundation as can we just go to Home Depot and I can give him a spray down when he's done in the fall? Whatever we can do to help support that and continue to be in the conversations would be awesome.
Perfect, absolutely.
Thank you.
Sounds like a terrestrial boat wash station.
Yeah, exactly. But it's for, we just don't want to see that spread. Like,
yeah, and unfortunately,
there's a lot of private homeowners all the way down that road.
If I could also just make another comment, that somewhat unique to this effort is doing the management and restoration simultaneously. It's kind of a key component, given that, the location and site characteristics. We have to be sensitive to, destabilization and things like that. Many of you may recall our Salmon River project where we started the treatments. and then phased in the restoration. We kind of ended the treatments and then moved more to restoration. It worked, but in this situation, you know, became a kind of key component to do them simultaneously, which is tricky and a little bit different for us. But
Oh, and yeah, so part of it too, I didn't mention this, but we are also setting up monitoring plots at this site as well. So we'll have an assessment and inventory of native species that are there or that were present prior to treatments. And so that we're able just to better track everything that's happening at these sites, making sure that we're trying to create the most successful and effective projects that we can. So trying to work through all of that, and also, you know, taking into consideration stabilization of the dunes and water levels. So a lot of components to the project. So the next project, there we go, is our eDNA work this year. So it's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. We're actually partnering with the Adirondack PRISM, and our goal of this year's eDNA project is to determine the spread of AIS through our connected water bodies. And that's going to happen, sorry, I don't know why I didn't put river after St. Regis. So they're all rivers, but we're looking at St. Regis, Oswegatchie, Black, Marquette, and Grass rivers. And we'll be doing eDNA sampling basically from the St. Lawrence, Eastern Lake Ontario region all the way into the Adirondacks. And so we're still honing in on the exact sample locations. We have hired a seasonal technician who will be working with me this summer to go out and collect all of those samples. And they'll also be doing the ROV studies as well. And so we're working on collaborating with the Adirondack PRISM and SUNY Oswego and DEC to really get this project on the ground and start something different. We haven't truly collaborated on connected water bodies with the Adirondacks before, so this is something that we're very excited about, and we'll likely ask for volunteers to come out if they want to help sample again this year. But we're still, all of that's kind of details being brought together right now. So stay tuned for more information for that project. And I'm going to just slide right into Zack's slides if that works for everybody. So Robert talks really heavily about our early detection work and the treatments and all the work that we've been doing at these priority conservation areas. And Rob talked about the timeline and the contracts that have happened with SLELO since 2011. So that's over 10 years of work that has happened at these priority conservation areas. And we thought that it was about time that we started actually crunching numbers more deeply to create these profiles or scorecards for the conservation areas. Previously, we kind of took everything to a vote from partners on what sites that we should go to. And this will help us be better informed with our decisions on where we're putting our efforts and energy. So this is something that is very draft form. Nobody has seen it, I think, except Robert and I truly. I don't know if Rob or Megan have seen it yet, but this is something that Robert and I have worked really closely with Zack, who is really heading this whole project. I was very excited to see the first profile actually come into one PDF together. I'm sure Robert was too. And so this will include a lot of information, including an evaluation of ecological significance, notable native species, and climate adaptable or climate resilient attributes to those sites. So taking into consideration the invasive species that are impacting all of that in ways that these sites are going to be most benefited from our program. So that's to come. We have this first one in draft form that Zack has been working on. It's got a lot of information that will be shared within it. And we're hopeful that this will go on our website and be a tool that not only SLELO PRISM can use, but the land managers or neighboring land managers can use as well. So this is very exciting. Hopefully this summer we'll have more details on that. And as we talk about really looking deeper into our PCAs, we know that there are about 50 mud lakes in New York State. Actually, I don't know if it's that many, but probably, I think we have 3 or 4 in SLELO. But so one of the things that we realized this past year was that we have these maps and these reports on the places that we're working in, but we didn't have interactive maps that people could actually really get to know the area that that we're talking about. And so we've been working really hard with Zack and Megan and Robert and myself to add treatment information, add all of our early detection information, and improve our website and our field reports. So Megan will talk more about that. I don't want to steal her thunder, but Zach's been working really hard on embedding these maps. So you can zoom in, you can see what the species are, you can click on all the reports and see where they've been located, where their populations are. And so that's all very exciting, but I will pass the,
Oh, you can go back one.
pass the torch to Megan. So thank you all. If you have questions, just contact me.
And I've been informed that the room is reserved at noon, so we'll have to be wrapping up soon. I think we can get through the rest of the meeting in that time, but just be aware of that. And I also wanted to point out how to make that. I just go away.
Hit that.
What?
Hit that. There you go.
Oh, okay, cool. I just also wanted to point out, so the map is showing you where the species were found, and it's also categorized by the tier in which the species exists in. So that's how the maps are set up on the website. And the tiered species list is a statewide approach to prioritizing the management of invasive species. Okay, and this is a little video that's just showing you how to access the field report. So you go to our website, hit field reports, and select the PCA you want to look at. Each PCA will have an about the PCA section. It'll have the interactive map that we just showed you. You can zoom in, you can zoom out. And then also it'll have the species that were found there, categorized by the tier in which they exist. And also the field report section, and that's an example of a field report, and treatment report section, and that's an example. And this is the El Dorado Black Pond, and then pictures, photos from the field as well, just because it's so beautiful at all these places, and we take such nice pictures and give you an idea of what the place looks like. Okay, and that is right on our website, and you just hit the field reports on the main menu tab and you can find it. And just FYI, most of them are complete with the treatment and all the field reports, and some of them I'm still working on. So just bear with me, they'll be done soon. Yeah, and thanks again to Zack and Brittney and Robert for really doing a heavy lift on all that information. And this is just like a snapshot of January through March stats. You can see we've been pretty active. We've had a lot of social media posts, a lot of engagements going on, over 2,000 website reviews, 9 events have been held, and 413 engaged, and 3 trained for the SLELO PRISM invasive species volunteer surveillance network so far this quarter. And I also would like to just mention that there is a recording available for the latest ELOD webinar that was held on March 23rd. It showcased the state of the science for swallowwort biocontrol. So we had researchers from New York and beyond come together, share their work. And Robert also gave a really nice overview of the involvement SLELO PRISM has had in this effort, this biocontrol effort with Hypena opulenta cage releases in the SLELO region. So that is available right on the Swallowwort Collaborative website, or also on SLELO PRISM's website in the webinar recordings area. You can find it there. If you can't find it, just email me. I'll send you a link right to your inbox. Oh, we had 134 people attend that too, so it was really a popular webcast. And I also just wanted to just talk briefly about the SLF Spotters program. There's some new folks in the room. So this program is a pilot program that we were launching in 2020, and then COVID happened, so we kind of took a pause, but we're relaunching it now this upcoming season. And the whole point of it is to raise awareness of the spotted lanternfly by engaging local businesses who are in like fishing and boating hotspots, because we're thinking folks, they're coming here to enjoy our resources here. We have a world-class fishery. Eastern Lake Ontario is a great popular spot. People like to come visit. And as we all know, SLF can hitchhike on vehicles pretty easily. So the whole point is that we engage the businesses. We give them the SLF brochures provided by New York State Ag and Markets. And then on the back of the brochure, we've created a trackable QR code that folks can scan with their phone. And then it brings them to a very short survey. And then we're able to measure the impact of that outreach effort. So that's going to be happening. We are targeting businesses in the SLELO region, but this is also adoptable for any program that wants to be involved. There is a, if you go to our website, it says Spotted Lanternfly Spotters webpage. There is a downloadable sticker. The sticker that I'm talking about, you can download it and put it on your own brochures. And there's also an order form for you to fill out and submit to New York State Ag and Markets and get your own brochures. They'll send them to you. Tom, you're welcome to jump in on that if you want to mention anything about the brochures, but it was a pretty easy process if you use that order form. Okay. And then as many of you probably already know, Invasive Species Awareness Week is June 6th through the 12th. And the SLELO EO committee has been working in collaboration to host events and support the events that are going on in the SLELO region. If you are interested in hosting an event, we are encouraging our partners to host something. It can be anything, just as long as invasive species are mentioned. It could be, you know, documentary viewing, a guided hike, a simple workshop, etc. Right now, the official NISA webpage is being built on that nisus.info webpage, so it's not up and running quite yet. So for convenience, I put the link to their NISA events form right on the SLELO's events page. So if you want to host an event, you just go to the SLELO events page, you'll see it, this poster probably right there on the page, and then you can click on their link, fill out their form. And then what happens is now we know that you're going to host an event, and the New York State DEC will promote your event on that official NISA webpage. So go ahead and do that. And also SLELO will be posting the SLELO NISA events on our events page soon. This is a snapshot of what's going on so far. This could grow. So just so you know, Monday through Friday, there will be a PRISM-led webinar scheduled for 1 p.m. and at 7 p.m. And the Pledge to Protect, SLELO PRISM's outreach initiative, will be promoted as an action item at multiple events. So we're pretty excited about that. And then this is just a snapshot, and it will be up on the events page soon. But this is what's going on here. And I just wanted to thank all the partners who are hosting NISA events. Thank you for doing that.
Megan, this is Tom. To jump back in, I just couldn't get to my mute button quick enough before. So as far as the outreach material, the form is still the same. There are some, so if you make a request, we might not be able to fill everything. Like we ran out of water bottles, now we have water bottles. We ran out of bags, now we have bags. But now we don't really have any, we're really low on the scraper cards. So it kind of waxes and wanes as far as what we have in stock and what we have available. But request what you want and we'll fill what we have. But the form hasn't changed. There are no new additions to the list, but some things are out of stock. So.
Okay, how about the brochures? Because that's what the trackable QR code stickers go on. You got a lot of those?
Some of them, I'd have to check with Sarah Peterson to find out which ones we have, which one. I know some of those are also running low. We definitely, it would affect you guys. We definitely have the French Canadian version of the SLF brochure. We have lots of those. As far as the English version, I'm not sure how many we have.
Oh, that's okay. All right, well, thank you, Tom. And I also, before we move on to our pause, we do have items in the room that are available to our partners as a special thank you for all the work that you do. Just pick out whichever item you like the best over there. Feel free to take one. And also, if anybody has not taken the Pledge to Protect, or maybe you just don't know what that is yet, it's our new outreach initiative. And those that take the pledge, they become a protector. And then you receive exclusive information with simple action steps that you can take to protect your lands and waters from the impacts of invasive species. And you go to ipledgetoprotect.org to take the pledge. And if you do that today, I have exclusive, Pledge to Protect swag that I'll give you as a special thank you. And anybody on the line that wants to take the pledge, just email me that you took the pledge and I will mail you some special thank you prizes.
Thank you, Megan. Thanks, Brittney, and thanks, Robert. So just one quick note, I know we're running out of time here, but in terms of the Hypena opulenta biological control that Robert spoke of, the populations in the field and in the lab that exist in Rhode Island, New York, and Canada. Probably will be the only ones we will be able to tap into as long as the researchers can continue to rear those. Those insects come from just 2 locations just outside Mariupol, Ukraine. So getting new bugs probably out of the question. So hopefully the researchers who are really working hard on this to maintain those populations will be able to do so. If there's some big sudden population crash, then so we're running out of time here, but I do want to just let me wrap this up. And then if there's a burning question or dialogue, what I'd like to do is, just send an email around to anyone in the meeting or any of the SLELO PRISM staff, and we'll be able to exchange information or forward information to the rest of the partnership. Our next meeting will be July 20th at 10 a.m. Perhaps we can meet in person at the outdoor facility, weather permitting, and then Thursday, October 20th, also at 10 a.m. We're all still available primarily through email. You have our email addresses. For those of you who don't, there they are. A lot of us are using our cell phones now. Our office phones just came back online days ago. But I think that since we're not all going into the office on a regular basis yet, if you need to contact us, probably email is going to be the best way to do that. So having said that, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to be here today. And for you folks on the phone, thank you very much. We look forward to all of our work moving forward and to continued collaborations with our entire partnership. So with that, and we've got 2 minutes to go, Sue. I'll just go ahead and close the meeting and again say thank you very much, and hope everyone has a great afternoon.
If anybody's interested in going outside and getting a group photo, I will take the photo. If you don't feel comfortable standing close enough to get into a photo, that's fine as well. But I'll probably pause outside somewhere just to see who will be willing to let me take a photo. We just don't have enough photos of partners to put into